Well, hello there. Thank you for joining me today. Might want to pull up a chair. I don't know that I'm going to be that long. I'm going to stay focused on this one subject today. But before I get going, what I'd like to do is I'm not going to be. I'm working on a huge file about who are you going to call the World Health Organization, probably the biggest criminal organization around. And because soon they're going to be in charge of everything, I thought it was a good time for me to share my files about them. It is more than a criminal organization. I'm going to guess that you might even be a little bit surprised. But for today, I'm going to be opening with a poem. These poems will tell you who they are. President Donald Trump dipped his greatest hits during a speech at a conservative CPAC forum, reciting song lyrics that were a reoccurring feature of his campaign trail repertoire. Entitled The Snake, the Al Wilson song serves as a cautionary tale about the danger of immigrations for Mr. Trump. It features a woman who foolishly embraces a dangerous predator. Think of it in terms of immigration, Mr. Trump told his audience. During the presidential campaign, Trump prefaced reading the lyrics by talking about the perils of accepting Syrian refugees. He called during his run for a ban on Muslim immigration, and while in office, he repeatedly sought to block immigration from Muslim majority nations. Mr. Trump constantly warned that a porous border is allowing criminals and drugs to flow into America, bolstering his case for a border wall. He has had similar criticism for America's legal immigration process, saying mechanisms like a diversity visa lottery and refugee admissions offer a route into America for terrorists and other people who endanger public safety. He also read The Snake during an event marking his first 100 days in office. And of course, you will have to interpret this poem how you want to interpret it. I personally interpret it as a warning that the United States is a dangerous country for immigrants, but just my opinion, and I will read the lyrics. On her way to work one morning, down the path alongside the lake, a tender-hearted woman saw a poor half-frozen snake. His pretty colored skin had been all frosted with the dew. "Oh, well," she cried, "I'll take you in, and I'll take care of you." "Take me in, O tender woman, take me in for heaven's sake. Take me in, O tender woman," sighed the snake. She wrapped him all up in all cozy in a curvature of silk, and then laid him by the fireside with some honey and some milk. Now she hurried home from work that night. As soon as she arrived, she found that pretty snake she'd taken in had been revived. "Take me in, O tender woman, take me in for heaven's sake. Take me in, O tender woman," sighed the snake. Now she clutched him to her bosom. "You're so beautiful," she cried. "But if I hadn't brought you in, by now you might have died." Now she stroked his pretty skin, and then she kissed and held him tight. But instead of saying thanks, that snake gave her a vicious bite. "Take me in, O tender woman, take me in for heaven's sakes. Take me in, O tender woman," sighed the snake. "I saved you," cried that woman, "and you've bit me even why. You know your bite is poisonous, and now I'm going to die." "Oh, shut up, silly woman," said the snake with a grin. "You knew damn well I was a snake before you took me in. Take me in, O tender woman, take me in for heaven's sake. Take me in, O tender woman," sighed the snake. I am going to be talking today about the issue with children in Palestine. And next, I will be talking about who are you going to call? Because they, well, there's a lot of raping of women and stuff going on, according to the WHO. by the people that are involved with the WHO. And because who is going to be your next landlord, I will get into that. And why am I going there with the WHO? Well, there's a lot of things that people don't understand about this country. We've made a lot of assumptions that things are organized and they've been done tests and all these things. And I'll be talking very in depth about the WHO because there is a way that we have allowed them to put doctors on pedestals, okay? And there's a case here in the United States, and the doctor, what I found interesting, I didn't find it surprising that he killed so many of his patients because it was a neurosurgeon in Dallas area. And he was accused of injuring 33 out of 38 patients in less than 2 years before his license was finally revoked. And that was in Texas. He only got convicted in 2017. And I believe it is a true case. And what I found the most interesting, and this is the part that really is insane, okay? Prosecutors would later tell CNBC that Dunst is the name of the doctor, injured 33 out of his 38 patients in less than 2 years, earning him the nickname Dr. Death, and later allowing him to make history of another kind, becoming the first doctor ever convicted of aggravated assault for care provided in the operating room. So, in the past, people have sued their doctors. Let's say when you end up in a wheelchair from some horrible surgery, and those cases highly complicated, okay? Because what they have done is you now these days you really can't find an attorney that will represent you because what they've done is they have made it so that no one can sue these doctors. And that is why I will be getting into the who next, because I believe that everybody needs to be completely aware of the cast of characters coming down the pike because they're having their meeting on December the 3rd to decide about the future of our health. So I'll take a deep dive into that. But for today, where is the only place on earth that has juvenile military court systems? Ding, ding, ding. If you answered Israel, your guess would be correct. And I looked at a bunch of articles. I'm only going to be reading from one or two of them, but all of the articles will be down below. Around 700 Palestinian children are tried in military courts each year. The courts have a conviction rate of 99.74%, and crimes such as throwing stones carry a 3-month prison term. A UNICEF report claimed that nearly all children were threatened with death, beaten, and many were victims of sexual assault. This first article really says it all. It's entitled, What It Means to Be a Palestinian Child in Israeli Military Court. Israel is the only state that prosecutes children in military courts. Well, that's really a record to be proud of now, isn't it? Each year, 500 to 700 Palestinian children under the age of 18 are arrested. The majority of the children are tried in military courts that do not meet international fair trial standards. Imagine that Israel's breaking the law. Under international law, Article 37b states unequivocally that no child shall be deprived of his or her liberty unlawfully or arbitrarily. The arrest, detention, or imprisonment of a child shall be in conformity with the law and shall be used as a measure of last resort for the shortest appropriate amount of time. That's where it gets tricky when they put in words like appropriate, right? Like these people would make an appropriate and fair decision, not possible with a psychopath. According to a Palestinian non-government prisoner support and human rights association, since more than 12,000 children, since the infantada of 2000, more than 12,000 Palestinian children have been detained. Children arrive blindfolded and sleep-deprived to the interrogations. They are forced into giving confessions without having their parents present or a right to counsel, as Israeli military law provides no right to legal counsel during interrogation. So, according to Israeli military law provides no right to legal counsel during interrogation. Verbal abuse, threats, physical and psychological violence, sexual threats of rape, and in some cases torture to inflict fear upon the children and coerce a confession. These are really men, aren't they? Beating up on little kids to get confessions? I'll continue reading. Sexual assaults by Israeli officers against Palestinian children have numerous forms, which include the grabbing of child's testicles and threats of sodomy with an object. In 2009, this group had documented at least 5 cases of children who reported having been sexually assaulted or threatened. According to UNICEF, in 2013 until 2014, 1,145 children signed affidavits reporting ill treatment by the IDF. These affidavits included the ill treatment of Palestinian children throughout their arrest. 162 children reported being blindfolded during transfer from the place of arrest to the police station. 189 children reported being painfully hand-tied upon arrest. 171 children reported being subject to physical violence during arrest, interrogation, and/or detention. 144 children reported being subjected to verbal abuse and intimidation during arrest, interrogation, and/or detention. 89 children reported being transferred from the place of arrest to the police station on the floor of the vehicle. 79 children reported being arrested at night, and 45 children reported being arrested during clashes or demonstrations. 163 children reported not being adequately notified of their legal rights, in particular, the right to counsel and the right to remain silent. 148 children reported being strip searched at the police station, and 76 children reported being strip searched upon arrival and transfer to IPS detention facilities. 28 children reported being held in solitary confinement. 63 children reported having had to sign a confession in Hebrew during the interrogation process. Israel is a serial human rights abuser. It's one of the world's worst. Its war on Palestinian children alone reflects it. They're systematically abused unjustly. Up to 700 are arrested annually. Most are lawlessly charged with stone throwing. Children as young as 5 are terrorized. They're too young to know why. They're abusively treated during arrests, transfers, and interrogations. They're denied fundamental rights. In 1991, Israel ratified the 1989 UN Convention on the Rights of the Child, called the CRC. It didn't matter. It brazenly violates its provisions. So in 1991, Israel ratified the 1989 UN Convention on the Rights of the Child. Article 37 states in part, no child shall be subjected to torture or other cruel, inhumane, or degrading treatment or punishment. No child shall be deprived of his or her liberty unlawfully or arbitrarily. The arrest, detention, or imprisonment of a child shall be in conformity with the law and shall be used only as a matter of last resort. Every child deprived of liberty shall be treated with humanity and respect. Principle 1 of the 1959 UN Declaration of the Rights of the Child states, every child, without exception whatsoever, shall be entitled to fundamental human and civil rights without distinction or discrimination on account of race, color, sex, language, religion, political or other opinion, national or social origin, property, birth, or other status, whether of himself or of his family. They're entitled to special protections and opportunities to develop physically, mentally, morally, spiritually, and socially under conditions of freedom and dignity. Not in occupied Palestine. Israel threatens them mercilessly. It treats them like adults. Arrests are lawless and violent. Homes are broken into unannounced pre-dawn. Property is damaged or stolen. Children are blindfolded, shackled, and beaten. They're thrust into jeeps, sometimes face down. At detention centers, they're interrogated harshly. They're painfully shackled. They're denied access to family members and legal counsel for days. They're threatened, terrorized, beaten, slapped, kicked, denied food and water for prolonged periods, and deprived of sleep. Confessions are forcibly extracted. They're forced to sign them in Hebrew they don't understand. Many become traumatized. Hundreds of complaints are filed. Doing so does no good. Israel is the only nation trying children in military courts. Palestinians are not afforded the same rights as Jews. Failure to do so is blatantly discriminatory. Under international law, adulthood begins at age 18. Israel considers children aged 16 and over to be adults. Military Order 378 permits up to 20 years of imprisonment for stone throwing. So a child either under the age of 16 or 18 can get up to 20 years for throwing stones. Geneva Article 147 requires fair trials. Israeli, give me a second here. Geneva Article 147 requires fair trials. Israeli military courts are rigged to convict. Kangaroo court justice prevails. Netanyahu and most other Israeli officials call criticism of flagrant state human right abuses anti-Israeli bias. So this is how it works, because the minute you question anybody, they talk about, you must want all Jews to die, you're anti-Jew. Well, that old tagline is pretty worn out and old, and I think most people are starting to see that most of us never hated the Jews. Most of us didn't want to see anything happen to the Jews. That is an old, worn out, tired story. So Netanyahu calls criticism of flagrant state human rights abuses anti-Israeli bias. Israel operates extrajudicially. Palestinian children endure some of its worst abuses. On November the 19th, Defense for Children International Palestine discussed July through September Israeli violations. Increased violence occurred. So, a young boy, 14, was shot in the leg by live ammunition. Another boy was shot in the forehead by a rubber-coated metal bullet. So I'm not going to go through each one of these cases. They target people, okay? They go after their feet, they go after their legs, they go after areas that will disable them. I'll continue reading. Israel bears full responsibility for these type incidents. They repeat with disturbing regularity. Arrests and brutal treatment follow. Since the start of the September 2000 Second Intifada, Israel arrested and brutalized over 9,000 Palestinian children. Illegitimate military orders authorize them. They violate core international law provisions. Arrests are lawless and violent. Evidence is contrived to convict. Forced confessions are used to pressure defense attorneys to accept plea bargains. The alternative is much longer sentences. Israel takes full advantage. Plea bargains extract a high price. So does bail when authorized. Israel profits hugely. Collective punishment pays very well. There was an article that was headlined Economic Exploitation of Children in the Military Courts. And I do have some links to these children's groups below. I have not verified these children's groups. I do not know if they connect to the United Nations. Just full disclosure. So, economic exploitation is official Israeli policy. Palestinians face enormous financial burdens. Children given plea bargains or released on bail, no evidence exists to convict them. Some are arrested randomly. Training exercises for the IDF include breaking into Palestinian homes violently. So, during arrest and detention, we've already said all this. Innocence is no defense. There is something else here I want to talk about. Oh yeah, the money part. Imagine a world. I'm pretty sure, and I'm not going to make a definitive statement yet, but in all these years of sharing my work, the one thing that keeps coming up in all of this horror is money. Money drives people to give up things. Money drives people to have to suffer. And it's all because of the psychopaths in charge who cooked up this concept of money. So, where we come from, we didn't understand money. Why would we need money? Because everything is abundant. There's plenty for everybody. They're the ones who brought in this picture of everybody must suffer because if you don't have enough money, you're not going to eat, right? Okay, let me keep going on here. Bail, when granted, can be up to about $1,000 US or higher. They struggle to get by. Any fine or bail amount is unaffordable. Parents are forced to borrow if able or deprive family members of basic needs. An often looked consequence is the psychological effects it has on the family who are under financial burden despite the child's innocence and arbitrary arrest. There was this young boy, age 17. He was arrested. He was accused of stone throwing and participating in a demonstration. Peaceful protests are considered illegal. Palestinians are denied all fundamental rights. Military Order 101 prohibits gatherings of more than 10 Palestinians without advance IDF authorization. Violators are subject to up to 10 years imprisonment, heavy fines, or both. So, I'll finish this story about this one young child. So this child was innocent. Those charges, they said, were bogus. And they ordered him to pay this high bail. And he did so. The family pulled together the money after the child was in detention for 11 days. The mother told this person, my husband died 6 years ago, and I support my 4 children by myself. So I had to borrow the 1,000 NIS from my neighbors. His older brother was arrested 3 months earlier. This financial exploitative practice against Palestinian prisoners and detainees in occupation prisons is a systematic policy to put pressure on the Palestinian society. It takes advantage of the impoverished financial situation and helps the occupation evade its financial responsibility towards the Palestinian prisoners and detainees. They call it emotional blackmail. It's economic and financial extortion. It's ruthless exploitation. It steals from people with barely enough to live on. Some have too little. It does so based on lies. Innocence is no protection. Occupation harshness persists. This other young boy was arrested, and after the hearing, his father said, "What the occupation is doing is emotional blackmail. Israeli police called me a number of times telling me to go to the police station to pay my son's bail using statements such as, 'Your child is very young. It is sad if he stays in prison. Your son needs to spend EID vacation with his family,' and other statements to make me pay the bail. We will not accept financial and emotional blackmail despite the fact that I support my family of 12 and I am unable to pay this amount of money. I refuse to pay by force. I refuse financial blackmail." So, I'll skip the rest of these stories because I'm getting kind of lost here. Uh, Israeli extortion costs Palestinians up to 15 million in their money annually. It's money they can't afford. Profiting on Palestinian misery is official Israeli policy. It's long-standing. It's unrelenting. Western media ignores it. Pro-Palestinian bias is long-standing. The Palestinian Ministry of Prisoner Affairs made an important step towards confronting the occupation's economic exploitation policies by announcing that they will stop assisting in paying the fines as a way to choke the military court system. It is a necessary step to support the Palestinian prisoners movement and its struggle to confront Israel's ruthless military judicial system. I'm going to be taking a short break, and when I return, I will be reading one poem as I close off this show. And when I return, I will return with more information about who you're going to call the dangerous people at the World Health Organization. We should have paid attention to those snakes. Remember those snakes everybody's wearing? The doctors are all wearing snakes on their logos. All these things that we ignored. They have been putting this stuff in our faces since the very beginning. Time to looky a little bit closer. So I'll be right back and I'll read the last poem and then I will see you on the next show. Okay, I'm back and here we go. This is called The Caged Bird. Maya Angelou wrote this. A free bird leaps on the back of the wind and floats downstream till the current ends, and dips his wing in the orange sun rays, and dares to claim the sky. But a bird that stalks down his narrow cage can seldom see through the bars of rage. His wings are clipped and his feet are tied, so he opens his throat to sing. The caged bird sings with a fearful thrill of things unknown, but longed for still, and his tune is heard on the distant hill, for the caged bird sings of freedom. The free bird thinks of another breeze, and the trade wind soft through the sighing trees, and the fat worms waiting on a dawn bright long, and he names the sky his own. But a caged bird stands on the grave of dreams. His shadow shouts on a nightmare scream. His wings are clipped and his feet are tied, so he opens his throat to sing. The caged bird sings with a fearful thrill of things unknown but longed for still, and his tune is heard on the distant hill, for the caged bird sings of freedom. How long are we going to keep being caged birds? I'm showing you exactly who they all are. Funny thing, funny thing. There's so many more of us than there are of them, but yet we are the ones who are the caged birds. We are the ones putting children, literally putting children in cages of torment, physical pain, and all kinds of abuse. Be safe out there and goodbye for now.